Matcha, capital city. "Who are you, Wyatt Staples?" Jade asked in a low tone as data streams passed before his eyes across 3 different monitors. The room he was using belonged to a commoner he'd managed to replace a few days ago. He'd move out and find another suitable disguise after his business was completed. There was no fear or doubt in his mind. The body of the commoner had been disposed of properly, and none of his so-called close friends and loved ones suspected the man was a mere act for him to play. No matter. He'd done it countless times before, and he'd do it many more times yet to come. Jade wanted to chuckle at the absurdity that would follow. His current mask would find a lucrative job off-world, carefully crafted to never mention specifics about it, but real enough to be believable. Then tragedy would strike in some manner, closing the stage forever. Alternatively, fading into obscurity without a trace or being able to contact his mask again was another favored option. Replacing a commoner was, in the end, all so trivial. What was the life of one nobody peasant in comparison to the glory and prosperity of the principality under the guidance of his Lord Regent? Truly, achieving the goal of becoming a stepping stone in that most wonderful outcome was far more than a mere pleb could ever hope to achieve in their entire worthless lives. They should be grateful he was able to find a use for them. Jade closed his eyes for a moment, regaining his focus. If he truly wished to bring about such an outcome, there was so much to be done. It had taken time to worm his way through security measures and encryption codes across the Principality's wide network and find all the relevant information he was looking for, but he'd done it. True to his suspicions, tracking Wyatt Staples through the Third Fleet's records was impossible. His records had been deleted, leaving behind as proof of his existence a mere file that flagged him as a deserter for failing to arrive with his cargo on time. Interestingly, he found 6 other Wyatt Staples in active duty. It only took him a second to push them aside. 3 were in the Auxilia, 1 was part of the menials under the logistical division, 1 was part of the general staff, and the last one was an EVA specialist. Useless pawns at the end of the day, they provided him with the confirmation that the name was, in fact, not a fabrication. With that as part of his arsenal and using the information the weak prince had divulged so brazenly, he had a starting point. A simple name. Volantis. There was little of note about it. A colony world in Guimore territory with little of interest to speak about. Regardless, he had everything he needed to narrow his search. Wyatt Staples, pilot, Volantis. That was more than enough. His records in the Third Fleet were gone, but the Academy was notorious for keeping a strict policy regarding its record-keeping. That was part of the information passing through his screens. There was no relief to be found, only more confusion as he read his records. "This doesn't make sense," he commented, reading through it for a third time. "Who are you, Wyatt Staples?" Jade asked again, eyes narrowing with suspicion. It truly baffled him. "You quickly rose through the ranks thanks to your scores and abilities as a pilot. A commoner, decent marksman, a dozen citations of misconduct, all rescinded. And yet, your hours of simulated training are below 10% of what a regular pilot would normally receive as a minimum to graduate," he said, summarizing the rather unremarkable track record of the black-haired pilot. And it truly was unremarkable for all the wrong reasons. Wyatt Staples didn't act like other commoners, and yet, at the same time, was everything a pleb was meant to be. He always obeyed the commands given to him, never protested, and never stepped out of line, even if he skirted the line a few times with no fault of his own making. On the other hand, though, his records showcased that he never tried to join the entourage of sycophants following a noble. Neither did he show interest in forming bonds with other commoners, not even during shore leave. He kept to himself in a self-imposed isolation. To lesser minds, this spoke of a man with anti-social behavior but who was otherwise harmless. But not him. He could see past the miasma Wyatt Staples had so carefully crafted around himself through his formative years. An underachiever with palpable talent as a pilot. Even if he truly was of commoner stock, it was evident that there was immense intelligence, guile, and focused intent in everything he did. Other small pieces of information fell into place, adding to the puzzle. Sporadic messages, 2 video calls, and a not insubstantial transfer of credits to one Wirt Staples. Was it a fabrication? More lies like the son he didn't have? Was his family real or mere scapegoats? What are you, Wyatt Staples? Answers would come in time, and the truth would be revealed. But there was something that he simply couldn't ignore. Was he waiting for a chance to prove himself? Or was he awaiting a command? Jade couldn't answer that question. and it frustrated him greatly. With a signal sent directly to his brain, Jade pushed aside his pondering and focused his attention on his mission. He smiled. Not even the traitor Lukacs Ishtal would be able to detect him now so easily. Still, he wasn't willing to compromise his position just yet. Connecting with his first target, the call was sent. It took a minute before it was answered. Jade, I was starting to fear you had been captured, Tamarin Caiston said as his face appeared on screen. Matcha's defense protocols were mightier than I originally anticipated. I apologize for my tardiness, Jade confessed. It would have been far easier without the aid of that treacherous fool Lukacs, my lord. Tamirin nodded once. It is a shame that Lukacs has sided with the prince. No matter. Have you managed to infiltrate the prince's command structure again? Not yet, my lord. Worry not. That pretender unworthy of his title will not detect my intrusion. I shan't make the same mistake again and rely on a hot-headed failure, he said, bowing his head. Frederick's death was a tragedy. However, useful it was, a tragedy nonetheless. His sacrifice will be remembered, Tamirin commented without much sincerity in his words. That reminds me. I must congratulate you, Jade. Your work planted the seed of doubt in many, and House Anderson has been open to discussions after witnessing the death of one of their heir apparents. The sly smirk on his lips didn't go unnoticed. I do my best to serve you, my lord, and our great Lord Regent, Jade replied solemnly. Continue your work, Jade. You are my best intelligence operative and the only one near that damnable brat who dares to call himself Prince. Infiltrate his staff and keep me informed whenever you can safely contact me. House Caiston will reward you handsomely, Tamarin ordered. My loyalty is yours and yours only, Lord Tamarin, Jade replied, bowing his head deeply. A moment later, and with a pleased expression, Tamirin ended the call. For his part, Jade merely started another call. It took much longer for the receiver to answer, but when he appeared on screen, he bowed his head in respect yet again. My Lord Andrew. Jade, Andrew Caiston greeted, raising an eyebrow. New face? For the moment, Jade replied. Does it displease you, my lord? One day, Jade, I'll see your real face, Andrew commented with mild humor. I must be the bearer of disappointment, my lord. I'm afraid I wouldn't recognize my original face, for not even I remember it, Jade countered, matching Andrew's tone. Andrew hummed, amused. I'm not convinced that is the case. Alas, that is of little importance. Will you return soon, or have you managed to sow more chaos? I've tried to incite discourse, but loyalty to the false prince is strong here. I've uncovered some worrisome information suggesting something significant happened. What exactly, I know not. I'll need to infiltrate the pretender's staff to verify if these hints and whispers hold true grounds for concern, Jade replied. What have you discovered? Plans for assault? A great house looking to support the prince? Andrew asked, intrigued. Jade shook his head slowly. I'm uncertain, my lord. There is turmoil, strife, and chaos within the pretender's ranks due to some recent event. Not the sort that breeds turmoil and ruptures ties, but rather one that may create chasms and splinter bark. Confounding this is a far more open discussion regarding contacting the Akanti hierarchy. Andrew blinked in surprise, making a double take. The hierarchy? For what reason has the prince contacted the hierarchy? I know not, my lord. I can only confirm that these communications have taken place. The subject or the content is still a mystery to me, Jade replied. I understand, Andrew replied, eyes narrowing deep in thought. This is an unforeseen state of development. Jade, continue with your mission with post-haste. Understood, my lord, Jade replied with a slight bow of his head. See to it. On that note, I took your warning to heart regarding the one named Wyatt Staples. My intelligence officers uncovered half a dozen other Wyatt Staples across the Third Fleet, and a seventh marked as a deserter. Further investigation is being carried out. That will not be necessary, my lord. I've conducted my own investigation. I'm forwarding you the information I've gathered, Jade revealed. Andrew's eyes flickered for a second before concern appeared on his features. Is this accurate? Andrew asked, eyes narrowed. It is, my lord Andrew, Jade replied, his stoic demeanor turning colder and more serious than usual. This Wyatt Staples may prove to be a problem if left unchecked. There's no telling what he could be capable of doing. Were you able to uncover more? Pinpoint the location of this Wirt Staples? Andrew asked as he overcame his concern. I have, my lord. There is a high chance Wirt Staples and the rest of this so-called family are a carefully elaborated figment. The sum of transferred credits was significant but below the alert threshold. After the transfer, little to no activity has been registered, Jade revealed. Highly unusual. Typically, commoners use the majority of the credits they earn on frivolous things. They have only the most basic understanding of saving credits, so this lack of motivation to indulge is indeed worthy of notice, Andrew hummed, crossing his arms for a brief moment before continuing. Continue to investigate him without hindering your main mission, Jade. Hide within the gaze of the prince and report to me significant movements and developments. Your will shall be done, my Lord Andrew. My loyalty is yours and yours only, Lord Andrew, Jade replied, bowing his head in respect before the connection died. Satisfied with his progress, his posture relaxed slightly, and he made a third call. The answer came half a minute later. I was starting to wonder if you were still alive, Jade, Veronica Draymore said as soon as she appeared on screen. I'm careful with every step I take, Veronica, Jade replied with a sincere smile. It's good to see you again. Likewise. I assume the video portraying Frederick's death was your doing? Veronica asked, smirking darkly. Jade shrugged innocently. Good. That witless imbecile served a higher purpose with his death. Patrick Anderson is furious. The loss of his son will not go unpunished. If Federico Cintor is successful, House Anderson shall support my Lord Father in full. It's not an impossible proposition. House Anderson is proud and does not easily forget slights, Jade added. Tamir and Caiston may be a coward and a three-forked-tongued viper, but he has his uses. The support of another great house will only accelerate my Lord Father's inevitable victory. The principality shall be guided by his mighty hand, and he will drag it outside the swamp of incompetence it keeps sinking into. Clara was a fool for not siding with my Lord Father. She is his favorite niece, adored. Yet she lacked the intelligence and wisdom to see his cause as just. Veronica narrowed her eyes. I do not wish to harm her. But if she must die for the glory of my father, then I shall mount her head on a pike myself. Merciless as ever. You haven't changed, Veronica, Jade said, elated. I'm my father's sword, his unwavering hammer. Friend or foe, none shall stand against him and his will. I'll make sure of that, Veronica declared with a burning conviction. What news do you bring me, Jade? Only that the two fools still believe my loyalty is theirs and theirs alone. My loyalty belongs to your Lord Father and to you, Veronica. As it has always been the case, as it always will be, Jade said, bowing his head respectfully. My Lord Father may not know you, my dearest friend, but I do. You shall be rewarded beyond compare once his victory comes, Veronica promised, her features softening for a moment. 'Cause mayhem and disruption, Jade. Make my cousin's problems tenfold as I behead my father's enemies. It shall be done as you desire, Veronica. For the principality and his Lord Regent. With that said, Jade ended the call and stood up. He powered down his equipment and spent the next 2 hours calmly packing everything. Once he was done, he set the pre-recorded messages and left the apartment, leaving behind everything except the necessary equipment. The hunt for a new mask would begin soon, and he needed to be ready. Camrim, Third Moon's orbital station. Duke Cornelius Draymore was enjoying a rare moment of relaxation as he stared down at Camrim, the beautiful planet that was the capital of his ducal territory. It was, as always, a calming, lovely sight. He raised a glass of wine to his lips, sipping it and savoring the refreshing, aromatic, and complex flavors dancing in his mouth for several moments before swallowing. Ah! A satisfied sigh left his throat, the slight burning tingling his taste buds, lips, and throat with the same intensity. Too short. Too fast, he said, protesting against the wilting sensations leaving him wanting for more of that succulent wine. Suddenly, a chime caught his attention, followed by the monotone voice of an AI. Marquis Hadrian Tygan has arrived at your request, Lord, the AI announced. Send him in, Cornelius ordered, setting his glass down but keeping his gaze firmly set on Camrim. The doors opened and the steps of the Marquis were heard. You've summoned me, my Lord Regent, and I've come, Hadrian greeted with respect. Come, sit beside me, Cornelius offered with a hand gesture to the empty resting chair next to his own. It would be my honor, my liege, Hadrian replied, accepting the invitation with measured delight. As he sat next to his Lord Regent, a maid approached, carrying a tray with 3 exquisitely crafted glass bottles, each containing liquids of different colors. "Halcyon Dragon," he said, and the maid served him a glass of a sizzling orange liquid. Taking it, Hadrian took a sip from it. A moment later, he sighed in satisfaction as a short-lived dancing flame swirling past his lips and faded into nothingness a few seconds later. "I'm honored that you remember my favorite drink, my liege." "Respect is a road paved in both directions, Marquis," Cornelius replied, picking up his glass to take another sip from it. "Indeed it is, my lord," Hadrian agreed before taking a larger sip of his drink. The two men sat there, enjoying the view in silence for several minutes until Cornelius finished his drink and set it down. "My Lord Regent?" he asked, setting his nearly empty glass down, giving his lord his undivided attention. "Does it ever get easier, Hadrian? Being a father, a parent?" Cornelius asked, his gaze focused on Camrim. "Even when our children go against our wishes, when they stand against us, or when they show devotion unchallenged. Tell me, does it get easier with time? Does the love change? Does the strife and guilt change? Do they recover? Or does hate and jealousy fester like an infected wound that does not heal?" Hadrian mused on his thoughts for several long, silent moments before delivering his answer. "It is a difficult question to answer, my lord. Love isn't universally unconditional or fair. There are parents who are ashamed of their children and children who loathe their parents. Do we not have stories and moral lessons speaking of such cases?" Hadrian stopped, then finished his drink, ending with a long, wispy display of fiery orange. One could be a parent who loves their children unconditionally and still be hated, or worse, end up as the one responsible for turning them into despicable creatures. The road of parenthood isn't easy. From old Earth to Astoria and across all of humanity, that imperative has always remained. Does it ever get easier? No, my lord. There is no such thing as easy. It never is. But one can be a good parent. And even then, many fail in such a task. Cornelius smiled sadly. "I was afraid that would be your answer. My father was of a similar opinion." He closed his eyes for a moment, exhaling through his nose tiredly. Opening his eyes, he continued, "Thank you for entertaining me." "I am at your service, my liege," Hadrian replied sincerely. "Although if I may be so bold as to ask, that is not the reason I was summoned, is it?" Cornelius shook his head. "House Ferentis has sent confirmation that a deal has been achieved. It isn't what I wished, but it is a start. A costly one, but acceptable nevertheless. However, we've not received a message from Felicity. Why? What has happened to them?" "Even if they were maintaining silence, my lord, enough time has passed for them to reach my house's territory. There have been reports of incursions launched by Drazan. Perhaps they stumbled across a considerable raiding fleet and were assaulted and captured," Hadrian proposed. "A possibility. But the Drazan aren't stupid. There are many high-profile nobles in their fleet. The Drazan would have asked for ransom in exchange for their lives." Cornelius hummed deeply, gently stroking his chin and short beard. "Something else happened. I'm certain of it. It couldn't have been the product of my nephew's planning either. And Clara? She knows the risks too well. I worry, Hadrian, that they may be lost. Deborah will not be pleased if her favored daughter and heiress apparent dies." "She would not, my lord," Hadrian agreed, thinking of the beautiful but ruthless woman. "I shall demand an explanation from House Ferentis and send scout ships in search of them, my liege." "Contact Count Genac first, Hadrian. There's no need to mobilize forces just yet. If they were captured or worse, we will act accordingly," Cornelius ordered. "It shall be done as you command, my liege," Hadrian replied. "That coward of Genac will answer. The weak fool will crumble like a sandcastle struck by a mighty wave at the first sign of real danger." "Weak?" Cornelius asked, bemused with an edge of humor in his voice. "You believe him to be weak, Hadrian?" "He is weak. House Ferentis has always been weak, my lord," Hadrian sneered. "Not just in terms of military power, but in attitude. House Ferentis is a house of weaklings averse to conflict. It is a wonder how they've preserved their territory for so long with little change over their long history." "You're wrong, Hadrian," Cornelius replied. "House Ferentis is strong, but their strength comes in more than warships, soldiers, and artillery. Their strength comes from their stability. Despite having lost the Hastrung system and being vulnerable to pirate and Drazan incursions, they are among the more stable territories across the Principality. You know this to be true, Hadrian." "That is true, my liege." "But that doesn't excuse their cowardice," Hadrian countered. "It does not," Cornelius replied with a nod. However, their power comes from their treaties, their fertile worlds, their industries, and fruitful markets. They are hardly the richest house or the most ambitious. Some would even call them underachievers. But in that mundanity does their strength lie. No one would benefit from them choosing a side. Not their allies, not themselves, not their enemies. Their weakness is their strength. For if anyone wished to bring annihilation or conquest to them, would their neighbors risk losing such an abundant breadbasket on a whim? And don't be fooled by their relative pacifism. House Ferentis would first set their own worlds aflame in nuclear fire before giving them to their would-be conquerors themselves. Perhaps. But would they have the courage? Hadrian asked. Wouldn't you do the same to deny the Erebians or any other enemy? Cornelius asked, and Hadrian's eyes widened. House Ferentis enjoys a privileged position of aggressive neutrality. Cowardice? Maybe, but it is effective. Clever weasels, Hadrian admitted with a slight chuckle. You may loathe or respect them, Hadrian, but they've found their place and will not be willing to let go of their position in our hierarchical totem, said the Duke. Hierarchical totem, my lord? Are you drawing a comparison between us and the Yakanti hierarchy, perhaps? Hadrian asked, confused. I'm talking about humanity's nature, Hadrian. For as long as humans have existed, every society, from the most ancient tribes to the present day, has formed a hierarchy that acts as the fundamental structure of a civilization and culture. Is our beloved principality not the same? Commoners, nobles, and the ranks in between them. Those who stand at the bottom, the middle, the top, and the peak. The Imperium is the same. So are the Erebians, the Albion Federation, the hierarchy, the Drazen, the commonality. The list expands ever more. No matter the values and the ideologies of any given system of government, ideology, theocratic belief, or something as simple as a mere household, there is always a hierarchy. The Duke rose to his feet and stepped closer to the window, seeing his reflection upon the thick, protective glass. To say all men are created equal is a fallacy. A lie whispered by those who try to reject human nature and go against it often ends up creating something worse. Embracing it is equally, if not more, dangerous. The bloody history of humanity is soaked and written with the blood of tyrants, dictators, and countless victims. No, Hadrian, to accept human nature is to accept reality. Do not embrace it. Do not deny it. Accept it and create something functioning where all can contribute and prosper with as much fairness as is possible to achieve. Cornelius turned to Hadrian. I cannot create a musical masterpiece. I doubt you understand the intricacies of quantum entanglement, but there are those who can. Some are born into luxury, while others are born into poverty. Some are stupid. Some are geniuses. Where is the equality in that? Talent, skill, wealth, opportunities, intelligence, and knowledge. Who is to determine these traits? We may be able to alter our genome now, choose favorable traits, and eliminate unwanted mutations and diseases. It is only natural for humans to search for our place in that hierarchy, and, as is our nature, most will wish to climb it as high as they can, regardless of the harm caused to others. My Lord Regent, you speak of it as mere barbarism. We are not primitives. We have systems, laws. Order, Hadrian protested. Are we really? Cornelius countered. Our systems of law and order, what do they entail? Their application, Hadrian replied. Wrong. Their application is a consequence. What they entail, Hadrian, is the use of violence, and violence's authority is unmatched. It can be used for protection or destruction, employed by honorable men and terrible despots alike. It doesn't matter. Once the hierarchical totem takes form, only violence can maintain it or uproot it, only to be replaced by another totem. So it has been since the dawn of humanity. So it shall be to its final sunset, he smiled. It is up to us how we use it. That, Hadrian, is what we can control. A strong leader, the head of the totem, will be able to balance the rest of it. Hadrian lowered his head after a few seconds of silence set between them. My liege is wise beyond even my years, he praised solemnly. Just then a chime came through. Lord Regent, a message has been dispatched by Count Chinak Ferentis. Marked urgent and only for your eyes, the AI announced. Cornelius raised an eyebrow at Hadrian. The older man frowned. My lord, this is not my doing. Suddenly, Cornelius felt the need to refill his glass with something much, much stronger. Matcha, Finnegan Palace, Royal Suite. My liege, it is your turn to move, Lukacs reminded the prince gently as the prince hadn't made a move for nearly 2 minutes. I'm aware, the prince replied as his left hand hovered above the board, occasionally touching a piece before letting it go. Finally, after another minute of silence, he made his move, taking Lukacs's rook with a bishop. The prince smiled, seeing a victory closing in. Looking at the silver-haired man, he appreciated Lukacs's efforts to amuse his selfish request and pretend to be a player more aligned with his level. It was a notable effort, even if the man had yet to concede a game to him. Then, with a simple move from his queen, his strategy fell apart. "Check," said Lukacs. The prince moved his king to the only available space, away from his other rook and a pesky flanking bishop. In that moment, he regretted moving too forward as two of his pawns boxed him in. There was no escape. He could see it. With a single pawn, Lukacs sealed his defeat. "Checkmate." "Well played," the prince praised. "I believe we have time for another match." "We do, your majesty." "Shall I play with blacks?" Lukacs offered gently. "It is only right," the prince said as he turned the board around and they began to arrange the pieces. When the board was reset, the prince made his opening move with a pawn. "Do you ever regret going against your house, Lukacs?" "Not for a moment, my liege." "Maurice, my brother, I thought he was a sensible man." "He was far more overtly ambitious and driven to surpass the legacy of our father than I originally anticipated," Lukacs replied, making his move. "You were the heir apparent, if I'm not mistaken?" the prince asked, though he already knew the answer. "I was, but I rejected my late father's favoritism. Being the head of my house never appealed to me. My place is working in the field as part of the intelligence division." Lukacs smiled sadly. "Perhaps my father saw the hunger for power in Maurice, and that's why he favored me. Perhaps it was that favoritism that led Maurice to turn out the way he did. Had I known, maybe I would have prevented House Ishtal from siding with Duke Draymore. What's done is done, and nothing can change it, no matter how much we wish for that not to be the case. We all make mistakes. Terrible mistakes." The prince paused for a second before making another move. "Now we must deal with the consequences and fight for the stability and betterment of the principality to the best of our capabilities." "You speak wisely, my prince," said Lukacs, moving a piece. "Hardly. My father taught me much. I simply apply that knowledge as I deem it worthy," the prince hummed softly. "Worthy? Such an odd word with an odd meaning. Tell me, Lukacs, what does it mean to be worthy?" he asked, their game continuing. "I wouldn't know, my liege." "To be worthy of what, exactly?" "Worthy of being the prince. Worthy of nobility. Worthy of your position. Worthy of life. Worthy of death." The prince paused. "Who is truly worthy of anything?" Lukacs remained silent, unsure of how to respond. The pieces moved across the board for 2 minutes of silence until from his throat a mirthful chuckle escaped. "My favorite piece is the knight. Versatile, an oddity among the other pieces, and the only piece that can jump or circumvent others. But do you know what piece is the most important? The king. Without the king, the game is over, my prince. The king dictates victory and defeat," Lukacs answered without hesitation. "From a strategic view, yes, it is. The rook is a solid defense, reliable and strong. The bishop is an unexpected danger that lurks from afar, often forgotten. The queen is the most powerful piece on the board, second in value only to the king. Losing her is like losing the game. But I disagree with the notion of the king being the most important piece." Smiling, he moved a pawn 2 spaces. "That honor goes to the humble pawn." "The pawn, my liege?" Lukacs asked, perplexed. "An odd answer, is it not?" "Yes, the pawn is the most important piece, in my opinion. It can only move forward and attack from the sides. It is used as a shield or a sacrificial lamb. However, it is also often overlooked, disregarded, ridiculed, and underappreciated. And yet the pawn's potential is nearly infinite. It can transform into any other piece, even the mighty queen. When all other powerful pieces are gone and only pawns remain, does their true value appear. They are the front line and the base of the pyramid holding the rest together. But pawns are weak, and their strength only comes in numbers and in unique sets of circumstances," Lukacs replied. "All too true. But the potential is always there, and pawn may become something more, something greater than their set place in the hierarchy. My father was fond of using totems as an analogy. The head is imposing, mighty, and powerful, but without a solid foundation and body, the head will fall and something else will take its place. A new totem will arise," said the blonde royal with a sad, distant smile. "But a pawn can't be a king, my liege. replied the silver-haired man. But it can kill one. It can kill any other piece. Violence is the ultimate equalizer, for it is a blind tool that anyone can use. Those who reject it or call it barbaric will be the first to suffer it. Even an avid pacifist must be ready to strike in violence against those who will willingly use it against their enemies. And when the board is cleared, another king will rise among the pawns, and the hierarchical totem will renew itself in one way or another. Are all pawns equal? Not even remotely. But there is potential in each one. Most will never ascend. Some will. That is an immutable imperative of humanity. The prince smiled as the last piece moved. Checkmate, he said as he flicked his king over. Yet another defeat, but this one felt good. My prince, Juliana spoke from behind the prince, as she'd watched and listened in silence the entire time. The hierarchy has replied to your message.